gallon of vodka, a gurney, and you're at the lowest point, and you made a decision to get sober, and the pain wasn't worth the addiction any longer. And you know, you're in this place, and the sobriety rates for people, and I looked at this on AA, the people who can stay sober 30 days or 6 months or a year, it just goes down and down. And here you are coming up on 30 years, and you made a decision in that moment. What was the first thing you did to clean it up? What was your very first decision you made?
Followed the recipe. It was the first recipe I ever followed. I have been a nonconformist and would do things like, I'm not getting a haircut until I have $100,000 a year. Well, several years ago,
I've seen the photos of your lawn.
Wasn't worth it. But AA was the first recipe I ever followed. It was the first situation that I said I surrender. And so I went to the meetings, poured coffee for a year. I went every single day, at least once. Went to the dances on Saturday night, got a sponsor, did the steps, plugged in, and followed the recipe. Worked.
And as a coach to entrepreneurs, would you say that that is one of the biggest problems? You're presenting a recipe, but an addict has a hard time following it?
It does, but I also, one other point there, I found spirituality. I was somewhere between agnostic and atheist, and I had real no belief except in money, and I put my stock in money, not in any spiritual program. That changed my life. And I would consider myself a Christian, a spiritual Christian, so that having a belief greater than self really was life-changing for me, because it took me out of my head. I would spend all day in my head, overwhelming myself. So that's where I learned how to let go. And letting go is two of the most nebulous words in the personal development, self-improvement, recovery language, and it means really surrendering to your ego, and an ego where it's typically bigger than your results. And so that's where I started to have emotional discipline, and the rest started to come together over about a 10-year period. But what was interesting about my addictions is once I got clean and sober, I manifested a headache. So I had a migraine headache for about 6 years because I didn't know how to take the edge off. So what really allowed me to transform was I started to read about neuroscience, mind-body connections. I started to follow Louise Hay, John Bradshaw, some of the speakers in the 80s that were really making an impact in mind-body connections and spirituality, where it started to come together, which is now quantum physics. And we see the Joe Dispenza and John Assaraf, and you see Bruce Lipton and some of these people have really brought that package together in the last 5 years. Well, I started that in the 80s, in the late 80s, and that's when I started to understand cause and effect, why I would do what I do, which now allows me to assist my clients, because if you spend your time in how-to's technical know-how, how-to's the recipe, how-to's the blueprint, but if you don't understand the cause that creates your effect, you'll have a brain chemistry that stays addicted. And this is why so many people in our teams, our cultures, that we foster this great culture, but a lot of people, they go in through the outdoor before they ever grasp why they do what they do. In an addicted brain, we create a chemistry where we become familiar with a set of feelings, and if you don't let go of the events that shape that feeling, then you will recreate people and situations to fulfill a biochemical craving you become addicted to. So you'll have bad relationship after bad relationship, and money never resolves the problem. Now, love makes the world go round. Money pays for the trip, so somewhere in between the gap there. And you're really skilled at the gap. You know what that means. It's a space between where you step off the ledge and you find your parachute on the way down. And you got to be able to find it in a relaxed space, because in anxiety, you'll recreate the same situation over and over. What I really assist people with is understanding, as emotional beings, we also have a lot of anxieties. Anxieties is a term that gets misused in fear and worry, but it's really anxiety, because the brain will recreate situations over and over until we learn to let go. So until you can separate yourself emotionally from the event typically becomes your identity. And this is what, go ahead. I saw that.
And I want to ask you, do you think that addicts have a higher propensity to become entrepreneurs? Because there was a survey done by USA Today, and 70% of Americans said they want to be entrepreneurs, but only 7% actually do it. Do you think because addicts are great starters, they love a high, they're more attracted to becoming entrepreneurs, or do you think that entrepreneurship breeds addictions?
Yes, 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 and yes. Okay, so I think there were 4 questions here. So,
Yeah.
okay, the first question is, well, an addict who steps into recovery has a higher success rate because an addict gets comfortable overcoming. But you can't, but overcoming situations, like you got to get beyond struggling. You have to get beyond surviving. You have to learn. You have to live in a space called now, the present. And you have to learn how to thrive and flourish. If you're an addicted struggler, you'll recreate situations over and over to fulfill that high where you can go to the top.
Yeah.
But a lot of entrepreneurs tend to they get to the top, but they don't find a way to maintain that. And a lot of times their success becomes their identity.
Yeah.
So if success is your identity and you lose your success, you have no identity. So I teach my real core group of clients who follow my philosophy that it's I am me, I am free. You are not your vocation. Your vacation has to be who you are. And you're unequivocally the best student I've ever had the opportunity to mentor, collaborate with, spend time, because you understand the key word balance plus organization comes together, results in life.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have an ideal day, it doesn't mean you had a bad day. Now there's a young man that you know, and he's a fan of yours. His name is Jared Wilkins.
Yeah.
He's seen you and I speak several times. He walked into one of my rooms in Houston, Texas a few months ago. He's been trained by a man who makes almost $20 million a year. So I said, Jared, what happens when you have a bad day? He goes, oh, Mr. Combs, I don't have a bad day. Now, you and I know what that means. It means that he can have a wall-kicking moment your term, right?
Yeah.
But it's only a moment. It's not a minute. It's a moment. So someone who's really skilled at free enterprise, business, spirituality, quantum physics, they'll have a mini, M-I-N-I, not an M-A-N-Y breakdown. Because we're human, that's the human factor. You're going to have challenges. We're also conditioned to repress our anger, which is completely not conducive to any kind of result. When you repress your anger, that's what creates diseases. Repressed anger then becomes resentment. People tiptoe quietly through life. They arrive at their grave safely. They live the greatest pain, the pain of regret, which is resentment. And then you factor that this is what I really have assisted people in the gap to understand. Most of their addictions are a direct reflection of their disappointments. Disappointment becomes a way of life. Most of society becomes addicted to disappointment. This always happens to me. I knew this would happen. You know the law of attraction, there's the 80-20 rule. I mean, if your plane is late, you didn't attract that. But if you're late for your plane over and over, that's because you're disorganized, right?
And you're sabotage. And entrepreneurial sabotage, I think this is the final thing. We see so many entrepreneurs, they have a bad day, going back to that, and they will, whether it's, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they are grossly overweight, 50, 60, 100 pounds overweight, because that night they have a bad day, they're feeding their addiction, they're stuffing the hole, as you know we talk about, or it's alcohol, or it's cheating on their wives. And one of our mutual friends, Dr. Adam Shack, he said in his practice for entrepreneurs, the infidelity rate is about 75% versus the regular rate, which is about 40%. So
the ultimate shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, and it's interesting chasing the 20% of what we feel we don't have, but we have the 80%, and then we get that person with the 20%, and then we realize we're missing the 80%. I mean, but addicted to chaos, and this is what you specialize in, and let's talk about this. So you have a new book, The Anger Factor. And about to come out, which is exciting. And could you, and also in terms of coaching, I mean, people watching are going to say, I want to hire Jeffrey. Now, your waiting list is probably a year.
L-O-N-G.
Long, yes, it's very long. But you have a new program where they can do virtual coaching with you. Can you talk about that?
I will. So I'll go back to the anger, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so anger is an emotion. Anger plays out in 3 different emotions: anger, hate, and resentment. So they're similar, distinctly different. So what many people do is they end up in unresolved anger. And a large percent of the population, about 65, give or take, represses it. that anger shows up in giving. Many people have a tendency to overgive, put themselves last, not have balance between giving and receiving. So we're taught to put other people first. All right, well that's cool, but if everyone else is first and you're last, then there's no balance in the middle. So you will have challenges receiving. And in the laws of compensation and free enterprise, if you have any kind of business, you have to have profit. You can be a great prophet and prophesize, but you have to have profit dollars to be able to be and stay in business, short and long term. Now, anger, and what I assist people with, anger, hate, and resentment. Anger is usually the violation. We get emotionally and or physically violated. You are very skilled at teaching people that 3 out of 5 women, 2 out of 5 men are violated, usually in sexual ways, sometimes physically. That's half the planet. So that means anytime you're in a store, in an airplane, the person next to you, there's a 50% chance that they've been emotionally violated or sexually violated. That's staggering to factor that. And we typically don't know what to do with that. We go into an outer body experience, we check out, we leave our body, and that's where most people are today, checked out. And that's why they have jobs. Because in a job, you are directed. When you become an entrepreneur, you have to be self-directed. The educational system, both in Canada and America, where we know this, it's a left to right model. You're conditioned to learn with your left brain, not your right brain. So the system rewards you for memorizing and regurgitating information you never use. Perfect case in point, I coached a woman last night, 52 years old, law degree from a top tier East Coast law school. She ended up $80,000 in law debt 20-some years ago. At 52 years old, she has 0 assets. She's in debt over $100,000 in real estate and unsecured debt, has no property, and her only chance is really to rent herself. But she's got a lot of conditioning to overcome in her left brain. And like many people, she's been through the same situations: broken homes, broken bones, broken marriages. And here she is, 52 years young, looking for a way out, and she has all this conditioning that has become her behavior. Now, if we can't let go, we'll recreate the same situation over and over, and we'll ask how-tos. How do I do this? That's what the typical person who's had a job will ask. That's the most common commonality that people ask, because they're conditioned to be in their left brain, not their right brain, not their intuitive, higher self. They're not innovative and creative, and they must be directed. It's the biggest challenge they face, and then they become emotionally addicted to disappointment.
And I know that, and thank you for that, because there's so many entrepreneurs watching this right now, and if you're one of them, you're one of the entrepreneurs watching this right now, and you're relating, I would say there's probably, and this is very speculative, but I would say there's probably a 70% chance, if not higher, you're addicted to something. It might not be alcohol, maybe it's Vicodin, whatever it is that you need, because when you start to go into the gap, it scares you, it terrifies you, you become angry, you want to disassociate. Like Jeffrey said, it's an outer body experience, and guess what? You're trying to go even further to numb yourself, and that's never going to be productive. Only 5% of businesses in America do over $1 million. 0.4% do over $5 million. And it's not that I don't think people have great ideas or capable skills. I think it's entrepreneurial sabotage. So Jeff, in closing, I know people want to connect with you. Coaching list is long. Tell everyone.
They can still get on it, though.
They can get on it, okay. Tell everyone how they can connect with you and about your new product. I want everyone to know.
Well, anyone can connect with me at www.goldenmastermind.com. I freely give my own phone number out, 209-932-0227. It's not an 800 number. I don't have operators standing by. I have a business from the comfort of my office. I live in a beautiful area of Northern California. I still operate in my home with a couple of superstar young rock star employees that assist me. I mean, we're high tech, but we still create the big checks. But I'm a service oriented person. If you call me, you'll get a call back from me. It's my niche, directly from me. So you can call me there at my website. Facebook, I have a large following. It's Jeffery. Same with LinkedIn. You can find me in those places. Jeffery Combs, Jeffery. In closing, entrepreneurial sabotage, the number one reason, not good enough. Not good enough is an effect, it's not a cause. Anyone that decides to collaborate with me either through what I write, where I speak, or coach, I will be assisting them in the first 5, 10, 15 minutes to understand the cause that creates their effect. And Susan, they do cry. was
Oh,
telling you
I
that.
know that
Not because I made them cry.
No, you didn't make me cry the first time. Jeffrey was my coach, and I really knew that I was capable, but I was angry. And I remember those first 15 minutes, and I did cry, and I'll never forget. Jeffrey said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to become a millionaire." This was back in 2005. 2005, so 10 years ago, and he said, "You'll do it, but you'll never be happy. You'll be chasing it because you'll be angry about it." And there I was crying.
It's because I was having a conversation with myself. Because I was you once.
Well, I don't know if anyone notified our parents that we were twins, but I think someone needs to notify them at some point. But Jeffrey, I can't thank you enough. I mean, the words thank you seem insignificant to how I feel about you and our friendship and everything you're doing in the world. So thank you.
Your significance is very significant to me. I mean, you are unequivocally the classiest human being I have ever met. I have coached some really, really good people, Susan, but not only are you classy, you live what you teach. You don't talk it, you live it. You live balance, you live organization, you live the good life. I mean, you teach people how really, in a 20, 40, 60-hour week, whatever that is, how to have balance, organization, emotional discipline, and a very relaxed body. See, that's why people relapse, because they don't live in their body. They're still in an outer body experience, trying to be someone that they're not. They're trying to do themselves into success rather than being a human being.
Thank you. All right, bye everyone. We will see you next time on The Power Show. My guest, Jeffery Combs, www.goldenmastermind.com.